Hearty shalom to you. Jeffrey Seif here. Glad you're out there. We're working our way through the book in Acts chapter 17. We're going to make our way to and through verses 10 through 15. It's an interesting story. It's all an interesting story, to be sure. It's played out against the backdrop of incited violence, mob action. It underscores the precariousness. You stand for truth, you stand for principle, you stand for the Lord, and then individuals look to knock the legs out from underneath you. It's extremely precarious. Jesus said, I'm sending you out as sheep amongst wolves. And it's like that in so many ways. I found my experience, I leave home and I go out there in the world, and I realize it can be rather trippy sometimes. Well, here, things have deteriorated such in Thessalonica, where they spirited Paul and company away. We're told in 16 that as soon as it was night, the brothers sent Paul and Silas to Berea. We need the cover of darkness. That's not really when people usually travel, but you have to do what you have to do. It's just that desperate. Upon arrival, they made their way to the Jewish synagogue. It's not like Paul saying, oh, well, I have problems with the Jews over there. I'm just done with all this. These are localized situations, and he, as his habit was, goes to the synagogue. We're told in verse 11, now these, that is, those there, were more noble-minded than in Thessalonica. Sometimes you can talk to people, but they just don't really have a heart to listen. That's why Yeshua said, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. There are people that hear you, but they don't really hear you. They look at you, but they don't really see. And they don't want to for reasons of their own. But these people were different. We're told they received the message with goodwill. Let's look at this thing fairly and squarely. And subsequently, they searched the scriptures to see whether these things were true. I mentioned this previously, that in creating the Tree of Life version of the Bible, we wanted a rendition of sacred scripture that was true to Jewish senses and sensibilities, in order that women and men could more comfortably, Jewish women and men, examine the biblical testimony to see whether these things are true. And similarly, individuals who had already come to terms with Jesus being true could themselves search both testaments and more clearly see the Jewish people. I always say I want to help Jewish people come to know Jesus, and I want to help Jesus people come to know Jews. This Bible is stitched together like that, not only in the way that the language is represented, but with the referencing and the notations and the scholarly aids. It's all about bringing that together. We're told in verse 12, many of them believed, as well as quite a prominent Greek women, quite a few prominent Greek women and men. It's interesting. Many of these Jews believed, as well as prominent Greek women and men. It interests me, by the way, how Luke, Paul's biographer, gives voice to the fact that as Paul ministers, women, powerful women in fact, are attracted to his message. I mention that because Paul is often served up as an example of those that marginalize women, and no self-respecting women would want to have anything to do with this guy that puts them down. To me, that says more about the interpreters of Paul than Paul himself, those that are predisposed to want to see him negative. You know, you can open up the Bible, you can find whatever you're looking for. We just kind of impose it into the narrative. But when you hear Paul's biographer, apparently women, powerful women, are attracted to Paul. So he's not this, put women in their place kind of guy, the way that he's often represented. Well, here, I don't want to make much of it, other than to note that Luke says, a lot of women are really kind of resonating with this. Powerful women, they're not used to being pushed around. They're actors in their own drama. We're told, however, in the aftermath in 13, that when some of the Jews in Thessalonica hear, they came there and began agitating and inciting people. You know, it's interesting. People can be moved by passion. And the individuals that were predisposed now to be negative toward Paul from the Thessalonican experience, they're going to come and transmit it and look to get it all stirred up there. We're told in 14 that the brothers immediately sent Paul away to the sea, but Silas and Timothy remain there. It's interesting, it seems to me, and it's unfortunate, but it is the way it is, the way these emissaries need to take flight. You know, I say that I go where I'm invited and I stay where I'm appreciated. Jesus said as much. You're going to go as sheep amongst wolves. He says, when you go into their home, if they extend their peace, thankfully, you know, you stay there, but should they withdraw it, you move on, shake the dust off your feet. There's plenty of towns to go through, and you're not going to get to them and through all of them. I mean, Jesus says as much. A little bit of paraphrase there, but not much. Well, that's amply attested here in the next generation. Paul had no firsthand experience with Jesus in the flesh, but now as he's advocating for him, he has personal experience with these. He ministers to Jews and non-Jews. They're open-minded souls, but then things seize up, agitation, you know, makes itself manifest, stirs up the pot, and he's got to run, get out of Dodge stealthily. We're told in verse 15, those escorting Paul brought him to Athens. And when he's in Athens there, he's going to make himself known and his message known there. This is a man who's just not to be dissuaded. There's a kind of dogged determination, a kind of being dauntless. A friend of mine, Brian Treadway, is a pastor, is preaching a series, Dauntless, looking at various examples in the biblical text. Well, Brian has a point, and we do well to recover that, being undaunted, not dissuaded by trials and tribulations. Certainly, this man is experiencing it all, but you know, he's on the road, he's on the move. He's gone to Thessalonica. There are going to be 2 letters back to Thessalonica, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. He's going to Athens now. He's going to leave Athens and go to Corinth, and we're going to get 1st and 2nd Corinthians. I mean, it's he's just building. He hasn't written those letters yet, but he's just out and about in the world, and God works through him, and he, you know, builds up community and then writes letters back to them to minister. Sometimes success in life is going to come out of great toil and hardship. It doesn't come easy, but it comes. As you leave, thank you for watching this little brief treatment of some text in Luke. I hope as you go, you're a little more stirred up to be a little bold in your faith and confident in the outcome, even if things don't always look well. You might be experiencing some rough waters. Well, so did he. But you know, God brought Paul through it. I bet he can bring you through it too. God bless.